Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of our life seasons where we talk about the different seasons of life and how we grow through it. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the concept of self-love, or rather my concept of self-love, and it's actually inspired by one of the days, I think in this trip last week, where I was just sitting alone in the park enjoying the whole scenery. So if you look at my Instagram, you kind of know which part I'm talking about, the one near High Street. So anyways, um I kind of want to talk about this topic because I've actually had a new realization of what actually self-love is. So prior to this trip actually, my concept of self-love is more, I think it's very simple. Okay, before I actually go into talking about what my concept of self-love is, I kind of want you guys to take a moment to pause this video and think about what your concept of self-love is, or rather what do you define as self-love. Okay, so just write it down, take a moment to think about it. So once you're done, I'm going to be sharing my previous concept of self-love. So self-love to me was, I think it's very normal for everybody. It's more of like meditation, journaling, taking yourself out on dates, reading your favorite books, just going on solo dates, or just, doing self-care regime like masking, facial mask and stuff like that. And going for massages, maybe. So I would say whatever version of your self-love is or self-care is, I want to kind of give you a little bit of a different insight as to what I feel self-care is right now for me. Because backstory, I've been actually thinking that, self-care is all about, doing mask, taking care of yourself. And that's what I've been doing for the past couple of months, going into, loving myself a little bit more. But I would say that this trip kind of made me realize that I my concept of self-love, or rather the concept of self-love that I have, was not helping me to actually love myself, because I still feel empty. I think in previous episode you will hear that I did say that, on certain days of the trip, when I was walking around like certain sceneries and stuff like that, especially the Golden Gate Bridge, I still feel loneliness, even though I know that, I'm my own best company. But somehow I can't help it but feel a sense of, I don't know, it's just this feeling of dissatisfaction and just unsatisfied. Like I'm not satisfied, or rather it's not as fulfilling as I thought it was gonna be. This whole concept of being alone and just exploring places alone and being truly happy. I felt like I wasn't truly happy. I was just kind of forcing these feelings out of me just because I've done all like the self-care activity, the self-love activity, right? And I would say that that's when I started to, really sit down and dig deeper as to why would I have all these feelings or emotions that comes up when I've already done the work. Right? So when I was sitting there thinking about it, I realized that the whole concept of my whole concept of self-love was, in a sense, like not helping me. I wouldn't say it's wrong, but it's just that it's not helping me. Because yes, by all means, like journaling, meditating, and doing facial mask every night or every other night, it does help to, boost that level of confidence, and rather to love yourself a little bit more, to make you feel good. But it's just only like that moment where you take in an effort to take care of yourself. That's only momentarily, because when you don't look at the deeper things, which is self acceptance. So, right now, self love to me is self acceptance, because I don't accept myself enough, or rather, I don't accept my emotions, I don't accept my deeper desires enough, or rather, I just don't accept my whole in general to actually, I would say, love myself and to feel like I'm loved. That's why I still feel this emptiness, even though I'm going out on walks alone, I'm taking myself out on dates, I'm eating alone and stuff like that. I still feel this sense of loneliness because I don't accept myself enough. I don't accept myself completely. So that was when I decided that, or rather I realized that, oh, that is why I still feel this loneliness or this emptiness in my heart, because deep down I know that there are certain parts of me that I don't accept, which is fine, right? I feel like I I would say there's this toxic culture of self-love where everyone is just so busy thinking about, oh, the activities that you need to be doing in terms of loving yourself and accepting yourself for who you are, the whole concept of you are enough. But I feel like when it gets too much, or rather when you try to tell yourself that you are enough but you don't fully believe in that statement, it's gonna backfire. Like you're not never gonna feel like you are enough, or you're never gonna be able to accept yourself or understand the whole concept of self-love if you are always doubting yourself, or rather if you don't believe in that statement of you are enough. Because truth to be told, we are not enough. Like there are certain things that you may want, like you desire, that you're not getting, or certain dreams that you want to have, but you're just not, able to get there. Let's just say, for example, right, like you want to be a model, and like I let's just say I want to be a model, and I'm like 158 cm tall. That's not gonna happen, right? It's harder. It may happen, but it's just harder. And it's the simple concept of, I may not be enough for the model industry, but I am enough for certain industry, right? And I would say that to play to your strength, to kind of know and to accept all these things, because if you're always deflecting it and just putting it aside, there will come to a point in time where you start to question, or these insecurities start to creep up because you don't fully accept it. You just push it down and hopefully it would disappear, which it won't. Because journaling, meditating wouldn't help you to get all these feelings, or rather solve all these feelings, because it's a deeper issue than that. It's not about writing it down and hoping that you would clear whatever blocks that you have. Yes, meditation and journaling does help to clear blocks, but deeper issues like insecurities or even your self-acceptance, it's something that you need to sit down with yourself and start working through. Because this is something that I've realized during this trip, where there are a couple of days where I need to sit myself down and really look at what am I not accepting myself for. Like what are the certain things that I'm insecure about, or what are the certain things that I'm trying to force myself to accept, but it's just not, it's just not me, right? So I would say that this is one thing that have made me really realize that I have been trying to do activities that are deemed as self-love activities, taking myself out on dates, eating alone, going out to just walk around, and like, yeah, just constantly, I don't know, just meditating, journaling, reading a book in my favorite park and stuff like that. While all these are nice, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy stuff like that, but I am not able to enjoy fully with my whole heart, because deep down, like I mentioned, there are still insecurities that are holding me back from enjoying this fully, from actually savoring these moments fully. So what I want to ask you is that, what self-love activities are you doing, constantly doing, trying to actually cover these deeper issues? Because trust me, if you feel completely happy doing the things that you are doing, and you feel that these are the type of self-love activities that kind of lights you up, by all means go ahead. But if you are doing all this just to cover up the deeper issues, then I think that would be a problem in terms of um how you would feel in general, right? You would never truly feel the full happiness, or the full form of happiness, or just relaxation, if you don't accept yourself. So self-acceptance is actually self-love. Okay, self-love is self-acceptance. If you don't accept yourself for who you are, if you don't accept, the emotions that you have, the thoughts that you have, the stories that you tell yourself, or just the things that you can do and can't do, then I would say that isn't self-love. Because while you can do all the activities, like I mentioned, while you can be fulfilled doing all the activities, deep down, you know it yourself. Like intuitively, there are still certain parts of you that is kind of like hanging there, and you can't really solve it, or you try to avoid solving it, but it's gonna come up, okay? Because like I mentioned, journaling, meditating, it won't help until you actually face the problem, or rather the open inverted issue, face to face. Okay, so I think that was one of the things that I've actually learned during this trip, or rather last week, where it took me some time to kind of understand this concept of the new concept of self-love, where you take time to face your insecurities, to face your fears, and to ask what exactly is it that you don't accept yourself for, or what exactly is it that you're still kind of about. So there are a few that came up for me in terms of like just trying to force myself out of my comfort zone, forcing myself to make friends, forcing myself to do things that I'm not ready yet. I think that was the thing that eventually boils down to me not feeling fulfilled, or not feeling 100% like happy. Because while coming on this trip, I do have a lot of expectations, like I mentioned, but one of them is to actually make friends, and just, I don't know, be in that whole zone of self-love and self-care, and just pampering myself. But when I was here, the reality is that I am learning a new version of self-love and self-care. What I thought was self-love and self-care was actually not helping me at all. Like, yeah, there are days that I go out and, read a book in the park and just enjoy myself. I do feel fulfilled some sort, but there is this feeling of like, I don't know, just this feeling that I'm trying to, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, there's just this emptiness and this loneliness that I'm a bit like, it doesn't ruin my day, but it still is enough to kind of make me wonder what exactly is it, to make me feel a little bit uncomfortable or not being able to enjoy myself fully. So that's that. And I kind of want to talk about how I've been navigating through self love, because it's still a journey of, loving yourself is a journey. It's the same exact journey as healing yourself. It's a long journey, it's a never ending journey. And I'm still learning how to love myself and, the definition of self love. And right now, I would say that self love to me is, other than self acceptance, it's also honoring your words, right? Like, if you accept yourself for who you are, you know where to put yourself, like what standards do you have for the people that you have in your life, and you embrace that fully, because that's you, right? As a, for me example, like, I'm someone that holds high standards to, not only to myself but also to the people around me. I hold them accountable to their whatever that they say. I hold myself accountable to the promise that I make to myself. So it doesn't matter how long it takes for me to fulfill that desire, or to actually fulfill that dream of mine, or to fulfill that promise. I always hold myself accountable to what I say, because this builds confidence. So holding yourself accountable to what you say you're gonna do builds confidence, because the more you actually show yourself, or your inner self, your subconscious, that you're able to accomplish things that you say that you're gonna do, the more confidence you build. And the more confidence you build, the more acceptance you have for yourself, right? So I would say that it's a whole entire cycle. And when I realized this concept, or rather when I start to, look into this concept of like self-love and being able to honor my own words, I think that's when things started to change a little bit more. I started to feel that, okay, this void that I'm trying to cover with, like, your self-love activities, is slowly opening up and actually really healing. So where I no longer feel days that I'm lonely, I do actually now embrace this part of me, this part where, it's okay to have days where I feel lonely, because at the end of the day, humans, we are built on tribes, right? So I'm here alone, I don't have a tribe here, I don't have friends and family here, I'm literally traveling alone, solo traveling. As good as that sounds, or as exciting as that sounds, and there are of course days that I really do enjoy, but there are also days that I feel, empty, and I feel like, I would love to share experiences like that with someone physically, and that's fine. So that was the thing that, I always told myself, that, oh, you can't feel that way, you can't feel lonely, you can't. But it's okay, at the end of the day, we're still human. I think that comes to a part where I start to give myself a little bit more um slack, in terms of trying to understand this whole concept of self-love, self-care, and like, making my life, open inverted, perfect, or the way I want it to be. I start to realize that it takes time to get there, and it's fine that we're not perfect. After all, I'm still human. After all, I'm still going through my journey, and I just want you to, if there's any takeaway that you can take out of this podcast today, I just want you to know that it's okay to be imperfect, and it's okay to not be enough. Because I know that there's this concept of, you're enough, you're enough, you're enough, always telling yourself that you're enough. But if you don't truly believe in it, you will never feel enough. And if accepting that you're not enough makes you feel like you're enough, why not just accept that you're not enough? Because that's the truth. Like, we're not perfect, and we are not enough. Sometimes we don't feel enough for certain things, and that's okay. I think give yourself some slack in terms of this whole self-love, self-care topic, or this whole concept of, what self-love and self-care is like. Because I feel like what we have, or rather for me, what I had in mind for, in terms of the perfect self-care regime, or the perfect self-care or self-love concept, is that, you fully enjoy life, and you're just someone that is so positive, like you just feel confident all the time, you're just 100% like in your life, enjoying your life. But the honest truth is, life is not like that. There are times you can be positive a majority of the times, but there are times that you are down, and it's just humans. Like, like I mentioned, the duality of life is back to the duality of life, where there's positive, there's negative, there's good, there's bad, right? Because without each of them, you won't be able to realize, the contrast or the difference. So I would say that right now, accept who you are, accept the truth of who you are and your story, what you tell yourself, and what is it exactly that is not enough, and just let it go. Know that you're not enough for certain things. You may not be the most talented person at certain things that you want to be, but just acknowledge that there are another part of you that is very talented in other things. Like for myself, I'm not academically smart, but I accept myself to know that I have this part of me where I'm able to just sit here without a script and just be able to just talk about anything, any topic that I'm very interested in. So that's kind of like a thing that I realized is like I wouldn't say it's a talent, but more of like it's a skill that I have, right? Because I know that certain people struggle sitting in front of a camera without a script. They don't know what to talk about, but I do know what I want to talk about, and I can just babble on and on and on for days. So I would say is to acknowledge that there's this balance, right? There are things that you're good at, there are things that you're bad at, and it's fine. Like it's okay. It's just a duality of life. It's just humans. But I feel like everyone tries to be like perfect, by saying that you are enough. You try to be perfect at every single thing. You try to feel like you need to ace every single thing that you put your heart and mind to. I think that's when you give yourself the pressure of, self-love means being perfect at every single thing. Self-love means being enough and being able to do whatever it is that you want to do and acing at it. I think that's the concept that ruins a lot of your mindset stuff, like the foundation of your mindset. So I would say that that's kind of like what I want to talk about in terms of like self-love and self-care, because I'm still trying to figure out. This is really fresh for me. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly self-love is like for me. Of course, I still do enjoy my self-love activities. Like I mentioned, I'm still doing those. I'm still meditating, I'm still journaling, I'm still reading my books. Those are, I would say right now, I look at them as bonus, because when I'm feeling good, like all this comes naturally, right? These are just habits that I implement in my life to keep up with this self-love concept. But at the core of it is who you are, or what you allow yourself to accept, accepting yourself as who you are, knowing that you can suck at certain things, and knowing that you can ace at certain things. Is just, there has to be something that you're good at. Even though you may feel like, if right now you're feeling like, oh, there's nothing that I'm good at, you're wrong. There has to be something that you're good at. As much as you suck at certain things, there are really things that you're good at to balance out, because there's no way that you're bad at every single thing. Because if you're still confused, write it down. Write what are the things that you've accomplished so far, or rather ask someone. Because honestly speaking, we are our worst critics. So people around us will be able to tell us, what we're actually good at. Because like I mentioned, the previous example of me sitting here without a script and just being able to babble on and on and on, I don't think it is a skill, or rather it's a talent of mine, or rather it's my, I don't know, something that I do really well. But my mom was the one that actually told me this, and I was like, oh yeah, that's true. And as people around me start to tell me things like that, I start to realize that, oh, so that is something that I'm really good at, but there's something that I'm really bad at, which is maths and science and whatever, not like academically wise. Yeah. So, or politics, even, like, I don't know, geography, history, stuff like that, I'm not very good at those. So I would say that when you accept this side of you and you start to play with your strengths, that's when you start to gain more confidence, right? Like I mentioned, honoring your words. Because if you say that you're going to do certain things, or you say that you're going to become someone or solve certain problems that you have in your life, make sure that you do that. Make sure, no matter how long it takes, make sure that you're at least working towards it, right? Like I mentioned that I wanted to start this podcast for the longest period of time. I hold myself accountable to it. There are times that I feel like, for the previous few months before I started this podcast, I might feel that, I'm not ready yet in terms of mental wise, or like emotionally wise. I give myself time to heal, to make sure that I'm ready. But I knew that this podcast was going to happen either ways. If it's not now, it's some other time in the future, right? And I know that this is one thing that everyone kind of looks past at, because we often say things. You'll find, like, I think for me at least, I feel like people say things that they just brush it off, right? They just say, I'm gonna be this, or I'm gonna do that, and then they never ever do that, because it's actually not at the back of their mind. They don't honor their words, and then that's why you see that they kind of don't feel confident in general, just because they don't allow themselves to have any examples to prove to themselves that I am capable of doing the things that that I said that I was gonna do. So I think this is kind of like important in terms of self-love. It's a little bit of a stretch, like a different topic in terms of like self-confidence and self-love. But trust me, it all boils down to the same thing of self-acceptance. Because with confidence, you accept yourself, you accept your flaws, you accept your imperfections, and understand that nobody is ever enough. You don't have to always feel like you're 100% enough, and that's fine. That's just life, right? So I think this episode is going to be a little bit short, a short one. I just kind of want to update on, my whole concept of self-love. So if you want to take away anything from this podcast today, I would say that is to take away, the thing to take away is to sit down and think about what is it that you're trying to hide from all these self-love activities of meditating, journaling, bring yourself out on dates, and forcing yourself to feel like you're enough. What is it that is deeper, like a deeper issue that you kind of need to solve, in a sense? Not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just everyone has issues to solve, and that's fine. I wouldn't say an issue, but rather a challenge or a thing that you kind of want to solve. Think of what exactly that thing is and start to look at it face to face and start to, solve that part. Because trust me, when you solve this emptiness, or rather this challenge that you face, this thing that you're trying to hide or push down, when you solve it, trust me that all the self-love activities are just gonna be a bonus. Because eventually, on your day-to-day basis, you will not feel this sense of like emptiness or this void that you constantly need to fill, because that void is being filled, it's being solved. Okay, so that's all I want to say for today's episode. Let me know your thoughts on self-love, or rather the concept that you think self-love is. I would love to hear from you guys. So I would see you in the next episode. Bye.